The auction house smelled like mildew and broken dreams. Maya Torres sat in a folding chair that wobbled every time she shifted her weight, her 6-year-old daughter Sophia pressed against her side. Both of them still wearing their discount store jackets because the heating in this place barely worked, and Maya couldn't afford to waste body heat. Around them sat the usual crowd, real estate investors in expensive coats, their phones out, researching properties before bidding. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. Contractors looking for flip opportunities. A few locals hoping for deals on abandoned buildings they could salvage for parts. Maya didn't belong here. She knew it. They knew it. But she'd come anyway, driven by desperation and a classified ad that had promised foreclosed properties, some as low as $500. She was 29 years old, though exhaustion had carved lines around her eyes that made her look older. Her hands were calloused from years of housekeeping jobs at the Marriott downtown, her nails cut short because long nails got in the way when you were scrubbing toilets and changing sheets for 12 hours straight. She worked 2 jobs to keep Sophia fed, clothed, and in school. Morning shift cleaning hotel rooms, evening shift stocking shelves at Target. She slept maybe 5 hours a night if she was lucky. 6 if Sophia didn't have nightmares about her father, who'd walked out 2 years ago without so much as a forwarding address. The rent on their studio apartment was due in 8 days, and Maya was short by $340. The car needed new tires. Sophia's school had sent home another notice about unpaid lunch fees. Winter was coming to New Mexico, the kind that meant heating bills Maya couldn't afford. She'd come to this auction with $850 in cash. Every penny she'd saved over 6 months, hidden in a coffee can under the sink. It was supposed to be emergency money, but what was a bigger emergency than homelessness? The auctioneer, a man named Douglas Reeves with silver hair and a voice like gravel, cleared his throat and began reading from a list. Most properties went for thousands, tens of thousands, amounts that made Maya's stomach clench. Then he read an address that made the room go quiet. Lot 47, former Celestial Heights Observatory, 23 miles northwest of town. Structure condemned in 2019 due to structural damage from monsoon collapse. 15 acres of land, main dome building, approximately 8,000 square feet, plus auxiliary structures. Property sold as is. No inspections, no warranties. Opening bid, $500. Maya's hand shot up before she could think. The room turned to look at her like she'd lost her mind. Douglas squinted at her over his reading glasses. "We have $500. Do I hear $600? Silence. $550? More silence. Maya could feel eyes on her, judging, pitching. A woman in the row behind her whispered loud enough to be heard. "That place is a death trap. Whole roof collapsed. You'd spend $100,000 just to demolish it safely." Douglas's gavel hovered. $500, going once, going twice. He looked around the room, giving anyone a chance to save Maya from her own desperation. No one moved. The gavel came down. Sold to bidder 23 for $500. Maya's hands shook as she approached the payment table. She counted out $500 bills while Sophia tugged on her sleeve. "Mummy, what did we buy?" "A building, baby. A really big building." The clerk processing her payment looked at her with something between pity and contempt. You know that Observatory is a complete loss, right? The dome collapsed in 2019. Been sitting abandoned for 5 years. County wanted to demolish it but couldn't afford the cost, so they auctioned it instead. I know. Maya didn't know. She'd barely had time to research any properties before rushing here after her morning shift. The clerk slid papers across the table. Sign here, here, and here. Property transfers to you immediately. Keys are in envelope. Good luck. You're going to need it. Maya signed, without reading. Her signature, shaky from exhaustion and adrenaline, and the terrible certainty that she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. They left the auction house with a manila envelope containing 3 keys, a property deed, and directions to an observatory Maya had never heard of, located on land she'd never seen, in a county she'd only driven through once on the way to her mother's funeral 3 years ago. Sophia was excited in the way only 6-year-olds can be. Is it like a castle? Will we live in a castle? It's more like a big science building, baby, with a telescope for looking at stars. Can we look at stars tonight? Maya pulled Sophia close as they walked to their car, a 2003 Honda Civic held together with duct tape and prayer. Maybe, sweetheart, maybe. The lie tasted bitter, but she couldn't bring herself to tell her daughter the truth. They'd just spent their emergency fund on a condemned building that might not even be salvageable. Maya had gambled everything on the desperate hope that 15 acres of land might be worth something to someone, that maybe she could sell it quickly and make enough to cover rent plus what she'd spent. But looking at the property description as they sat in the car, reality crashed down. Remote location, no utilities, access road severely damaged, structure unsafe for entry. Maya put her head on the steering wheel and let herself feel it. The crushing weight of being 29 years old, working herself to death, and still falling behind. The math didn't work. The world didn't care. She was drowning, and she'd just spent her life preserver on a property that couldn't save her. Sophia's small hand patted her shoulder. It's okay, Mommy. We'll make it work. We always do. The faith in that voice broke something in Maya's chest. Her daughter believed in her completely, trusted that Mommy would fix everything, and Maya had no idea how. She started the car. Want to go see our new building? Yes. Sophia bounced in her seat. Adventure time. The drive took 40 minutes, most of it on increasingly rough roads. The GPS led them off the highway onto a county road, then onto what might have once been a paved access route, but was now more pothole than pavement. They drove past empty desert scrubland, all sand and cactus, and twisted juniper trees. No other buildings, no signs of civilization, just vast stretches of nothing under a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Then, rising from the desert like something from another world, the observatory appeared. Even collapsed, it was magnificent. The main structure was a massive white dome, or had been before the monsoon destroyed it. Now the dome looked like a cracked egg. One side caved in completely, exposing twisted metal and shattered telescope equipment to the elements. The building beneath was concrete and steel, institutional and cold, but somehow still beautiful in its geometric precision. 2 smaller outbuildings sat nearby, both looking more intact than the main structure. A fence surrounded everything, chain link topped with barbed wire. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this, though sections had been torn down by weather or vandals. Maya parked outside the fence and killed the engine. For a long moment, she just stared. "It's huge," Sophia whispered, her voice carrying awe instead of disappointment. It was huge. 8,000 square feet of condemned property that Maya now owned. The weight of it settled on her shoulders like concrete. They got out of the car and approached the fence. One of the keys from the envelope fit the padlock on the main gate, which swung open with a scream of rusted hinges. The property was exactly as described: abandoned, damaged, worthless. But as Maya walked closer to the main building, she felt something unexpected. Not hope. Exactly. More like possibility. The kind of feeling she hadn't let herself have in years, because hope was dangerous when you were barely surviving. The front entrance was locked with a heavy chain. Another key from the envelope opened the padlock, and the chain fell away with a metallic rattle that echoed across the empty desert. Should we go inside? Sophia's excitement had turned to uncertainty, her 6-year-old instincts finally recognizing danger. Just for a minute. To see what we bought. Maya pushed the door open, and they stepped into darkness that smelled like dust and old electronics and something organic she didn't want to identify. She pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through black air to illuminate a reception area frozen in time. Chairs sat against walls, waiting for visitors who would never come. Information displays explained astronomical concepts to an audience of dust. A desk held a computer from the early 2000s, its screen dark and dead. They moved through the building carefully, Maya testing each step before letting Sophia follow. The corridor led to what must have been offices, break rooms, storage areas. Everything abandoned, everything left behind when the observatory closed. Then they reached the main chamber, the room beneath the collapsed dome, and Maya's breath caught, even destroyed. It was spectacular. The telescope itself was gone, probably removed before the collapse, but the mechanism that would have rotated the dome remained. Massive gears and motors, all frozen and rusted. Catwalks circled the room at different heights. Control stations sat dark and silent, and above it all, where the dome had been, was open sky. Sunset was painting everything orange and purple, light streaming through the collapsed roof to illuminate the devastation in almost religious beauty. "It's like a church," Sophia said softly, and she wasn't wrong. Maya stood in the center of that ruined room and felt something shift inside her. Yes, this building was damaged. Yes, she'd made a terrible financial decision. Yes, she had no idea how to salvage any of this. But for the first time in 2 years, since her husband left and her world collapsed, Maya wasn't thinking about survival. She was thinking about possibility. The sound of an engine made her freeze. Through the hole in the dome, she could see headlights approaching on the access road. Multiple vehicles, moving fast. "Mommy, who's that?" "I don't know, baby. Stay close to me." They moved back through the corridors toward the entrance. By the time they reached the reception area, 3 trucks had parked outside. Expensive models, the kind contractors drove when they wanted to look successful. A man emerged from the lead vehicle. 50-something, wearing pressed khakis and a polo shirt with a company logo Maya didn't recognize. 2 other men flanked him, younger, both carrying tablets and looking official. Maya stepped outside, pulling Sophia behind her. "Can I help you?" The man's smile was professional and cold. "Marcus Chen. I'm a property developer. Heard someone actually bought this dump at auction today." His eyes traveled from Maya's discount store jacket to her beat-up Honda to Sophia, hiding behind her legs. "Didn't expect it to be you. It's my property. What do you want?" "To make you an offer." Marcus pulled out a checkbook from his pocket. "I'll give you $15,000 right now. Cash payment, you sign over the deed. Everyone walks away happy." Maya's heart hammered. $15,000 would solve everything. Rent, car repairs, Sophia's school fees, and enough left over to survive for months. But something in Marcus's smile made her hesitate. He was too eager, too ready with that checkbook. Nobody offered $15,000 for a condemned building unless they knew something she didn't. "Why do you want it?" "Land value. 15 acres, this close to town, even with a damaged structure, has development potential. I'll handle the demolition costs. Build something profitable." One of the younger men leaned close to Marcus and whispered something Maya couldn't hear. Marcus's expression flickered, annoyance crossing his face before the professional smile returned. "Actually, make that $20,000, but the offer expires in 24 hours. After that, I withdraw completely." Sophia tugged on Maya's hand. "Mummy, don't. Baby, not now. But this is ours." "You said it's ours." Marcus's smile grew wider, sharper. "Kids don't understand real estate. This building is worthless to you. You don't have money to repair it or resources to develop the land. Take my offer before you're stuck with a liability that costs more to maintain than you'll ever recover." Maya looked at her daughter, at Marcus, at the collapsed observatory behind her. She thought about the $850 she'd already spent, about the rent due in 8 days, about Sophia's faith that Mommy would fix everything. "No." Marcus's smile vanished. "Excuse me?" I said no. "This property is mine. I'm not selling. You're making a mistake. Probably. But it's my mistake to make." Marcus's expression hardened. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. This property has complications, legal issues you can't afford to handle. Take my offer while it's on the table. The offer you raised from $15,000 to $20,000 in 30 seconds. Whatever this land is worth, it's more than that. So no, Mr. Chen, I'm not selling." Marcus stared at her for a long moment, calculation playing across his face. Then he gestured to his men. They climbed back into their trucks and drove away, kicking up dust that turned orange in the dying light. Sophia squeezed Maya's hand. "Did we do the right thing?" Maya watched the trucks disappear down the access road. "I have no idea, baby. I have no idea." They spent that night in a motel 15 miles from the observatory, the cheapest place Maya could find that would accept cash. 1 bed, no breakfast, walls so thin they could hear the couple next door arguing about money. Sophia fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the day's excitement. Maya lay awake staring at the stained ceiling, calculator running numbers in her head that didn't add up, no matter how many times she tried. She'd spent $850 on a property that Marcus Chen had offered $20,000 for. That meant either he was an idiot or Maya was sitting on something valuable she didn't understand. But what? The building was destroyed. The land was remote. The location had no obvious development potential. Marcus had mentioned legal complications. What did that mean? Maya pulled out her phone and started researching. Celestial Heights Observatory had opened in 1978, funded by a private foundation. It operated for 41 years before monsoon damage in 2019 made it too expensive to repair. The foundation had dissolved, the property had gone into foreclosure, and the county had auctioned it to recover unpaid taxes. Nothing unusual there. Just another failed institution becoming another problem for local government. But then, Maya found an article from 2018, 1 year before the collapse. Celestial Heights Observatory discovers potentially hazardous asteroid. The research team had identified an asteroid with a trajectory that might threaten Earth in 2087. The discovery had made headlines briefly before being overshadowed by other news. The article mentioned Dr. Catherine Reeves, the observatory's director, who had died in 2020 at age 89. No family, no heirs. Her entire estate had gone to the foundation, which used the funds to cover debt before dissolving. Maya's eyes caught on one sentence near the end of the article. Dr. Reeves dedicated her life to astronomy, living on site at the observatory for the final 15 years of her career, refusing retirement offers to continue her research. Living on site. For 15 years, Maya sat up in bed, careful not to wake Sophia. If Dr. Reeves had lived at the observatory, where had she stayed? The main building had offices and research space, but Maya hadn't seen any residential areas during their brief exploration. One of the auxiliary buildings. It had to be. She looked at her phone. 11:47 p.m. Too late to drive back tonight. But tomorrow, after her morning shift at the hotel, she would return. Not to explore the collapsed main building, but to find wherever Dr. Catherine Reeves had lived for 15 years before dying with no family and no heirs. Maya finally fell asleep around 1 a.m., her mind churning with questions that wouldn't settle. The hotel shift the next morning lasted forever. Maya cleaned 23 rooms, scrubbed 23 toilets, changed 23 sets of sheets. Her supervisor complained that she was moving too slowly, working distracted. Maya apologized and tried to focus, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the observatory. She picked up Sophia from school at 3 p.m. and drove straight back to the property, stopping only for gas and cheap sandwiches from a convenience store. The observatory looked different in afternoon light. Less mysterious, more sad. A monument to scientific ambition, abandoned and left to rot in the desert. Maya unlocked the gate again and drove through. This time, instead of approaching the main building, she headed toward the two auxiliary structures. The first was clearly storage. Metal shed filled with rusted equipment, old computers, spare parts for telescope mechanisms that no longer existed. Nothing useful. The second building was different. Smaller, maybe 1,200 square feet, with windows that suggested actual living space. The door was locked with a deadbolt that none of Maya's keys fit. "Mummy, look." Sophia pointed to a smaller entrance on the side, a door that had been forced open at some point. The frame was splintered, the lock broken. They squeezed through into a narrow hallway that smelled like dust and old paper. Maya's phone flashlight revealed a modest apartment. Kitchen with vintage appliances from the 1982. Living room with a couch and bookshelves still full of astronomy texts. Bedroom with a neatly made bed, as if Dr. Reeves had stepped out and planned to return. Someone lived here, Sophia said, her voice echoing in the empty space. The scientist who ran the observatory. She stayed here instead of driving home every day. They explored carefully. The apartment was frozen in 2019, the year Dr. Reeves had evacuated when the monsoon threatened. She'd probably planned to return after the storm passed, after repairs were made, but the damage had been too severe, and she died a year later without ever coming back. The bedroom held a desk covered in papers, star charts, mathematical calculations, observation logs, all meaningless to Maya, who'd barely passed high school math. But tucked in a drawer, she found something different. A journal. Leather-bound, worn, filled with handwriting that wasn't technical notes but personal thoughts. Maya opened it to a random page dated March 2018. Confirmed trajectory calculations, 3 times. The asteroid is real. Impact probability in 2087 is higher than anyone wants to admit. I've reported findings to NASA, to the International Astronomical Union, to every authority who might listen. They thank me politely and do nothing. Too far away to worry about, they say. Let the next generation handle it. But I keep thinking about that generation, about children who aren't born yet, who'll inherit our failure to act. Someone needs to do something. If the institutions won't help, then I'll find another way. Maya flipped forward, reading entries that grew more urgent, more determined. June 2018. Established contact with Dr. Harold Martinez at MIT. He agrees the threat is real and that current planetary defense systems are inadequate. He's connecting me with others who understand the stakes. Not government officials, private individuals with resources and motivation to act. August 2018. The consortium is forming. 7 people, all wealthy, all childless, all determined to fund real solutions. They're pooling resources to create an emergency fund, something that can be accessed when the threat becomes undeniable. When institutions finally admit we were right all along, my role is simple: safeguard the assets until the right person comes along. Someone young enough to see the threat materialize. Someone with nothing to lose and everything to gain. Someone who'll use the fortune to force action when politicians still want to delay. Maya's hands trembled as she read. Fortune. Dr. Reeves had written fortune. She flipped to the last entry, dated July 2019, just before the monsoon. Storm coming. Big one. I've moved everything to the vault beneath the main building. The consortium agreed. This is the safest location. Remote, forgotten, unlikely to be disturbed. We've structured the assets to transfer to whoever purchases the property if it goes to auction. Legal, complicated, but the attorneys assured me it will hold. The key to the vault is hidden where only someone truly exploring would find it. Not casual trespassers. Not demolition crews. Someone who takes time to understand what this place was, what it represented, what it still protects. If you're reading this, if you bought this observatory, if you bothered to search this apartment, then you're the one we've been waiting for. The vault code is written in the stars, literally. Look up. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. She looked at Sophia, at her daughter's wide eyes reflecting the flashlight's glow. What does it say, Mummy? It says there's something hidden here, something valuable. Like treasure? Maybe. Maybe exactly like treasure. They returned to the main building as sunset approached, painting the collapsed dome in shades of orange and purple. Maya moved through the darkening corridors with new purpose, her phone flashlight cutting through shadows. Dr. Reeves had written, "Beneath the main building." That meant a basement or underground level. But Maya hadn't seen stairs leading down during yesterday's exploration. She returned to the main observation chamber, the room beneath the collapsed dome. In daylight streaming through the broken roof, she'd missed details that became obvious in the focused beam of her flashlight. One section of the floor, near the base of the telescope platform, showed a seam. Not damage from the collapse, but intentional construction. A hatch, covered with the same concrete as the rest of the floor, nearly invisible unless you were looking for it. Maya found the release mechanism hidden in what looked like a junction box. She pulled, and the hatch lifted on pneumatic hinges, revealing stairs descending into darkness. "Stay here, baby. I'll check if it's safe." "No way." Sophia grabbed her mother's hand. "We're a team. Teams stick together." Maya couldn't argue with that. They descended together, their footsteps echoing on metal stairs that went down at least 20 feet. The basement was larger than Maya expected. Not just a storage space, but a proper underground facility. Climate-controlled, judging by the sealed doors and ventilation systems, the air smelled sterile, preserved, like something designed to last decades without maintenance. Her flashlight beam found a door at the end of a short corridor, heavy steel, with a combination lock and a placard that read, "Emergency Vault. Authorized personnel only." Above the lock, someone had mounted a small metal plate. Engraved letters caught the light. The code is written in the stars. Maya remembered the journal entry. "Look up." She tilted her head back, and her flashlight revealed the ceiling had been painted black with tiny points of light. Glow in the dark paint, forming constellations, but not random constellations, specific ones. And beneath each constellation, a number: Cassiopeia, 14 Orion, 09, Andromeda, 87, Lyra, 23. Maya stared at those numbers, her mind racing. 14, 09, 87, 23. The year, 2087. The year Dr. Reeves had calculated the asteroid might impact Earth. She approached the vault door and spun the combination dial. Right to 14, left to 09, right to 87, left to 23. The lock clicked. The heavy door swung open on well-oiled hinges. Inside was darkness, until Maya's flashlight beam revealed what Dr. Catherine Reeves had hidden. The vault was approximately 15 feet square, with industrial shelving lining 3 walls. On those shelves sat metal cases, each labeled and numbered. Maya opened the nearest one. Bearer bonds. Hundreds of them, each worth $100,000. She counted quickly. 50 bonds in this case alone. $5 million. The next case held stock certificates. Not modern digital records, but physical certificates from the 1,980 seconds and 1,990 seconds. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, all purchased when they were startups, all held for decades. Maya didn't know much about stocks, but she knew enough to understand these were worth fortunes. A third case contained real estate documents, deeds to properties in 7 different states, commercial buildings, apartment complexes, undeveloped land, each property generating rental income that had been accumulating in trust accounts for years. The fourth case was smaller, containing USB drives labeled cryptocurrency wallets and papers with what looked like access codes. Bitcoin purchased in 2011, Ethereum purchased in 2015. Maya had heard about people who bought crypto early and became millionaires. These wallets contained thousands of coins. She moved from case to case, her hands shaking, her mind unable to process the magnitude of what she was seeing. Gold bars stacked like bricks, rare coins in protective cases, more stock certificates, more bonds, more deeds. And in the center of the vault, on a pedestal, sat a leather folder with Maya's name on it, not handwritten, printed. Like someone had known exactly who would eventually open this vault. Maya opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside was a letter on legal letterhead from a firm in Washington. Dear property purchaser, if you are reading this, you have successfully opened the Emergency Preparedness Vault, established by the Consortium for Planetary Defense. Congratulations! You are now the legal owner of assets, valued at approximately $340 million, as of January 2025. These assets were assembled between 2018 and 2019 by 7 individuals who shared concerns about inadequate funding for planetary defense initiatives. Rather than trust governments or institutions that operate on political timelines, we chose to create a private fund that could be activated when needed. The legal structure is complex, but valid. All assets transfer automatically to whoever purchases this property at foreclosure auction. We anticipated that economic conditions would eventually force the county to sell, and that the buyer would be someone either very desperate or very curious. You appear to be both. The assets are yours to do with as you choose. However, we ask that you consider their intended purpose. Asteroid 2087 KR-14 represents a credible threat to human civilization. Current projections suggest impact probability of 1:75 by 2087. Those odds will improve or worsen as tracking continues. We established this fund to ensure that when institutions finally acknowledge the threat, when politicians stop delaying and start acting, there will be immediate resources available. Not waiting for appropriations or budget negotiations. Just money, ready to deploy. You could keep everything. Buy a mansion, retire wealthy, live comfortably forever. That's your legal right. These assets belong to you completely. Or you could honor our intent, establish a foundation, fund research, push for better planetary defense systems. Use this fortune to save lives that won't exist for another 60 years. We can't force you. We can only hope that whoever opens this vault will understand what's at stake and choose wisely. Enclosed are contact details for our attorneys, financial advisors, and a complete inventory of all assets. The combination to this vault, 1409873, should be changed immediately and shared only with trusted individuals. Welcome to the fight for humanity's future. We're counting on you. Sincerely, the Consortium for Planetary Defense. Dr. Catherine Reeves. Director Maya read the letter 3 times, each word cutting deeper into her understanding of what had just happened. She'd bought a condemned observatory for $850. She'd turned down Marcus Chen's $20,000 offer. She'd spent her emergency fund on what everyone said was a terrible decision. And now she was standing in a vault containing $340 million in assets assembled by people who believed the future was worth saving. Sophia tugged on her sleeve. "Mommy, you're crying." Maya wiped her eyes, laughing and sobbing at the same time. "I'm okay, baby. I'm better than okay." "Is that the treasure?" "Yeah, sweetheart. That's the treasure. A really, really big treasure." "Are we rich now?" Maya pulled her daughter close, looking around the vault at assets that represented more money than she'd earn in a dozen lifetimes. "Yes, baby. We're rich now. Can we buy new tires for the car?" The question was so innocent, so small compared to the magnitude of what they'd found, that Maya started laughing harder. Yes, we can definitely buy new tires." They climbed back up the stairs together, Maya carrying the leather folder and one case of bearer bonds. She locked the vault behind her, spinning the combination to new random numbers she'd remember. The sun had set while they were underground. Stars filled the New Mexico sky, thousands of them, brilliant and clear in the desert darkness. Maya stood in the ruined observatory and looked up through the collapsed dome at those stars. Somewhere up there was an asteroid designated 2087 KR14. Somewhere in the future, her daughter would be 68 years old, possibly with grandchildren of her own. And that asteroid might threaten everything they'd built, everyone they'd loved. 7 people had looked at that threat and decided to do something. Not later, not when politicians acted. Now, they'd assembled a fortune and hidden it here, trusting that someday someone would find it and understand what it meant. Maya had bought a condemned building on a desperate gamble. She'd turned down a quick profit because something felt wrong about Marcus Chen's too eager offer. She'd explored when any sensible person would have cut their losses. And now she stood in the ruins of someone else's dream, holding the means to save the future. Her phone rang, the sound jarring in the desert silence. Maya answered without checking the caller ID. "Miss Torres?" A woman's voice, professional and clipped. "This is Patricia Blackwell from Chen Development Corporation. Mr. Chen asked me to reach out with an improved offer for the observatory property. We're prepared to go as high as $100,000 if you'll sign tonight." Maya looked at the leather folder in her hand, at the vault beneath her feet. $100,000. 5 times what Marcus had offered yesterday. They knew. Somehow, they knew there was something valuable here. "Miss Torres, are you there?" "I'm here. And the property's not for sale. Not for $100,000. Not for any amount. Mr. Chen won't be pleased. He's prepared to make this difficult for you if you don't cooperate. Zoning challenges, permit issues, legal complications. Tell Mr. Chen that if he sets foot on my property again, I'll have him arrested for trespassing, and tell him I've already contacted attorneys who specialize in property rights. Whatever games he's planning won't work." Maya hung up before Patricia could respond. Her hands were shaking, adrenaline flooding her system. She'd just threatened a property developer who clearly had resources and connections, but she'd also just found $340 million in a vault beneath a condemned building. The math had changed. The game had changed. Maya Torres wasn't a desperate single mother anymore. She was the custodian of a fortune assembled to save the world. The motel that night was the same cheap place with thin walls and stained ceilings, But Maya booked 2 rooms this time. Sophia got her own space with a TV and clean sheets. Maya sat in the adjacent room with the leather folder spread across the bed, reading documents by lamplight. The inventory was staggering. $87 million in bearer bonds. $112 million in stock certificates, most of which had appreciated significantly since 2019. $43 million in real estate holdings across 7 states. $78 million in cryptocurrency. $15 million in gold and rare coins. $5 million in cash in offshore accounts. Total value, as of January 2025, $340 million. All of it legally hers. The consortium's attorneys had structured everything to transfer automatically to the property owner. No disputes, no challenges, no complications. Well, almost no complications. The folder included a note about Marcus Chen. Be aware that certain individuals may attempt to purchase the property before you discover the vault. Mr. Marcus Chen of Chen Development has been monitoring county foreclosure auctions for 5 years, specifically watching for this property. He was contacted by a former consortium member who revealed details before dying in 2020. Mr. Chen does not know the exact location of the vault or its contents, only that the property contains significant hidden value. Do not sell to him. He will use these assets for personal gain, not planetary defense. Trust no one who offers suspiciously large sums for apparently worthless property. Maya's jaw clenched. Marcus had been circling this place for 5 years, waiting for it to finally go to auction. He'd lost his chance when Maya bought it for $850, and now he was trying to fix his mistake. She picked up her phone and called the attorney listed in the folder. A woman named Jennifer Wallace at Carson & Wallace in Washington, D.C. The phone rang 4 times before a voicemail picked up. Maya left a message. This is Maya Torres. I purchased the Celestial Heights Observatory at county auction 2 days ago. I've opened the vault. I need legal representation immediately. Marcus Chen is threatening me, and I need to understand my rights and responsibilities. Please call me back as soon as possible. She hung up and sat in the darkness, listening to muffled TV sounds from Sophia's room. Her daughter was watching cartoons, safe and warm, completely unaware that their lives had just changed forever. The phone rang at 6:47 a.m., jarring Maya from restless sleep. She answered groggily. Miss Torres, Jennifer Wallace, I got your message. Are you safe right now? Maya sat up, suddenly wide awake. Yes, I'm at a motel with my daughter. Good. Don't go back to the observatory until we've secured your legal position. Marcus Chen has a history of aggressive tactics. Last time someone got in his way on a development project, their car was vandalized and their home insurance mysteriously cancelled. He can't do that. I own the property legally. Ownership and safety are different things. I'm flying to New Mexico this afternoon. Until then, stay public, stay visible. Make sure people know where you are. Chen won't try anything if witnesses are present. They talked for 45 minutes. Jennifer explained the legal structure in detail. The consortium had been brilliant. Every asset was clean, documented, and unquestionably Maya's property. No creditors could claim it. No family members could contest it. The vault had been designed to transfer wealth without probate, without publicity, without any legal hooks for challenge. However, Jennifer cautioned. You need to move quickly. File the property deed with the county. Open new bank accounts. Transfer assets into your name formally. Right now, everything's in legal limbo. Once it's officially yours in public records, Chen can't touch it. How long will that take? If we push hard? 3 days. I'll bring a team. We'll handle everything. Maya felt some of the tension in her chest ease. Professional help. People who knew how to navigate this world she'd stumbled into. After hanging up, she checked on Sophia, who was still sleeping soundly. Then Maya returned to her room and started making lists. Things to do, people to call, decisions to make. First decision. What to do with $340 million. Dr. Reeves' letter had asked Maya to consider honoring the consortium's intent. Fund planetary defense research. Establish a foundation. Use this fortune to protect a future that wouldn't arrive for 60 years. But Maya had a daughter to raise right now. Bills to pay today. A life to rebuild immediately. She thought about the studio apartment they'd be evicted from in 6 days. About working 2 jobs just to stay barely afloat. About Sophia's apologetic voice when she asked for things other kids had. It's okay, Mommy. I don't need new shoes. These ones still work. Maya could keep everything. Buy a mansion. Retire at 29. Give Sophia every advantage, every opportunity, every material comfort. That was her legal right. Or she could honor 7 strangers who'd trusted that whoever found this fortune would choose humanity over comfort. The answer came to her as she watched sunrise through the motel window. She didn't have to choose. She could do both. Take $10 million for herself and Sophia. Enough to live comfortably forever. To give her daughter stability and opportunity. Put the remaining $330 million into a foundation dedicated to planetary defense research. Exactly as Dr. Reeves had intended. It felt right. Not saintly, not sacrificial. Just right. A balance between taking care of her family and honoring the gift she'd been given. Jennifer Wallace arrived that afternoon with 3 associates and enough legal documents to fill 2 briefcases. They met in a conference room at a hotel in town, spreading papers across a table, while Sophia colored in the corner. First things first, Jennifer said, sliding a document forward. Sign this. It formally accepts the transfer of assets from the consortium's estate structure to you personally. Once signed and filed, you're the uncontested owner of everything. Maya read carefully before signing. Her signature felt heavier this time, weighted with responsibility and possibility. Second, Jennifer produced more papers. We're establishing a foundation called the Reeves-Torres Initiative for Planetary Defense. You'll serve as director with full control over funding allocations. Initial endowment, $330 million. The foundation will fund research, advocacy, and development of technologies to detect and deflect potential asteroid threats. And my personal assets, separate account, $10 million liquid, plus this property deed showing you own the observatory and 15 acres outright. You can develop it, demolish it, or convert it into a museum. Your choice. Maya looked at the collapsed building visible through the conference room window, a monument to scientific ambition, abandoned and forgotten. Now it would become something else. A symbol of what was possible when people looked beyond immediate survival and planned for futures they'd never see. I want to restore it. Make it functional again as an observatory. Name it after Dr. Reeves. Jennifer smiled. I think she'd like that. They worked until sunset, signing documents, establishing accounts, filing paperwork with the county clerk's office. By the time they finished, Maya Torres was officially and publicly the owner of a $340 million fortune. Her phone started ringing immediately. Word had spread through whatever channels property developers monitored. Offers poured in. $200,000 for the land. $500,000 for the whole property. One caller went as high as $2 million. Maya declined them all politely and then blocked the numbers. Marcus Chen showed up at the hotel at 7 p.m., walking past the front desk like he owned the place. Jennifer intercepted him in the lobby before he could reach Maya's room. Mr. Chen, we have a restraining order ready to file if you contact my client again. Marcus's professional smile was gone, replaced by barely controlled anger. She doesn't understand what she's stumbled into. That property should be developed properly, not turned into some ridiculous science project. The property is being developed exactly as the owner wishes. If you have legal concerns, contact our office through appropriate channels. Until then, this conversation is over. Marcus left without further argument, but his expression promised this wasn't finished. Through the hotel window, Maya watched him drive away and felt a chill run down her spine. He's not going to give up, she said quietly. Jennifer stood beside her. No, he won't. Men like Marcus Chen don't accept losing, especially when they've been planning something for 5 years. We'll need security for the property. Cameras, monitoring, possibly a guard for the first few months. I can afford that now. Yes, you can. Jennifer's expression softened. How are you handling all this? It's been 3 days since you bought a condemned building for $850. Now you're managing a $340 million foundation. That's a lot to process. Maya thought about it, honestly examined how she felt, terrified, overwhelmed, but also relieved. For the first time in 2 years, I'm not worried about rent or electricity, or whether Sophia can have lunch at school. I can breathe. That's worth more than any amount of money. You're going to do great things with this fortune. I'm going to try. That's all any of us can do. The next morning, Maya and Sophia returned to the observatory with a team of structural engineers, not to demolish, but to assess, to understand what restoration would require. The lead engineer, a woman named Dr. Sarah Kim, spent 4 hours examining the collapsed dome and the building beneath. Her report was thorough and surprisingly optimistic. The main structure is sound. The dome collapsed, but the building itself is solid. You'll need to clear the debris, install a new dome, replace damaged equipment. Cost estimate: $8 million for full restoration to operational status. Can it be done? Absolutely. This was a state-of-the-art facility in 1978. With modern technology, we could make it even better. New telescope, updated computers, climate-controlled observation chamber. It could be world-class again. Maya made the decision without hesitation. Do it. Restore everything. Make it better than it was. Dr. Kim smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. I'll have a full proposal to you by next week. They walked through the property together, discussing plans. The auxiliary building where Dr. Reeves lived could become a museum, documenting the observatory's history and the consortium's mission. The main building would return to active research. The land itself could host educational programs, bringing students out to learn about astronomy and planetary defense. Sophia ran ahead, exploring with the fearless energy of childhood. She climbed on fallen debris and peered through gaps in the collapsed dome, imagining what it must have looked like before. "Mommy, can we live here? Like that scientist lady did?" Maya looked at the desert stretching in every direction, at stars already visible in the late afternoon sky. "Would you want to?" "Yes. It's quiet. And you can see forever. And nobody bothers us." The idea took root immediately. Why live in the city, commuting to a property she now owned? Why not move here, turn this place into home? The auxiliary building could be renovated into proper living quarters. Sophia could attend the small school in the nearby town. They'd have space, peace, safety. "Okay," Maya said. "Let's do it. Let's make this home." The renovation took 6 months. Construction crews worked 12-hour days, clearing debris, installing the new dome, updating systems. Maya and Sophia stayed in a rental house in town, visiting the observatory daily to check progress. Word spread about what Maya was doing: restoring a defunct observatory, establishing a foundation for planetary defense research. The story hit local news, then regional, then national. Single mother discovers $340 million hidden fortune, chooses to save future rather than keep it all. The headline wasn't quite accurate. Maya had kept $10 million. But the narrative of sacrifice and heroism stuck. Interview requests poured in. News crews wanted to film the restoration. Documentary producers proposed multi-episode series. Maya declined most offers. She wasn't interested in fame or publicity. She just wanted to honor Dr. Reeves' gift and build something lasting. But one interview request she accepted came from Dr. Harold Martinez, the MIT researcher mentioned in Dr. Reeves' journal. He'd been part of the original consortium, one of the 7 who'd assembled the fortune. They met at the observatory on a warm spring afternoon, 6 months after Maya's purchase. Dr. Martinez was 70 now, distinguished, with kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. "Catherine would be so proud," he said, looking at the construction. "She worried no one would understand, that whoever bought this place would just take the money and run. I almost did. I thought about it. But you didn't. That's what matters." He gestured at the partially restored dome. "Can I ask what changed your mind?" Maya thought about that moment in the motel room, watching sunrise, making her choice. "I kept thinking about my daughter, about what world she'd inherit. If I took all that money and did nothing, I'd be telling her that short-term comfort matters more than long-term survival. That felt wrong. You're teaching her something valuable. That we're responsible not just for ourselves, but for futures we won't live to see." They walked through the property together, Dr. Martinez sharing stories about Dr. Reeves. How brilliant she'd been, how dedicated, how she'd sacrificed personal relationships and comfort to pursue scientific truth. She never married, never had children. Science was her family. This observatory was her child. He paused at the entrance to what would become the museum. "In a way, you're both her legacy now. You and Sophia. The family she never had." The grand reopening happened on a perfect November evening, almost exactly 1 year after Maya's purchase. The new dome gleamed white against the darkening sky. Inside, a state-of-the-art telescope pointed toward stars just becoming visible. 300 people attended. Scientists, researchers, students, locals who'd watched the transformation, representatives from NASA and the International Astronomical Union, members of families descended from the original consortium, and Sophia, wearing a new dress, beaming with pride as her mother gave a speech to the assembled crowd. Dr. Catherine Reeves spent her life looking up, Maya said, standing at a podium beneath the restored dome. She studied stars billions of light-years away. She calculated trajectories of asteroids that won't reach us for decades. She thought about futures most of us can't imagine. And when she identified a threat that politicians didn't want to address, when institutions said, "Let the next generation handle it," Dr. Reeves did something extraordinary. She found others who shared her concern. Together, they assembled a fortune, not for themselves, but for whoever would eventually need it. "I bought this property for $850 because I was desperate. I was a single mother working 2 jobs, falling behind on rent, running out of options. That condemned building looked like my last chance at something. Anything. I had no idea what I'd find. No idea that Dr. Reeves had left a gift that would change not just my life, but potentially the future of human civilization. The Reeves-Torres Initiative will fund research, advocacy, and technology development. We'll support scientists tracking near-Earth asteroids. We'll push for better planetary defense systems. We'll make sure that when 2087 arrives, when my daughter is 68 and possibly watching her own grandchildren grow up, they'll have tools to protect themselves that we're building today." This fortune was hidden for 7 years. It could have stayed hidden forever, but Dr. Reeves trusted that someone would find it. Someone who'd understand what it meant. Someone who'd choose the future over the present. "I'm honored to be that person, and I promise to use this gift exactly as she intended." The crowd applauded. Sophia ran up to hug her mother. The telescope's first official observation began, tracking asteroid 2087, KR-14, with precision Dr. Reeves could only have dreamed of. That night, after the guests left and the excitement faded, Maya and Sophia stood beneath the dome, looking at stars through the telescope. The asteroid was visible as a tiny point of light, barely distinguishable from the millions of other objects in space. "That's the scary rock?" Sophia asked, peering through the eyepiece. "It's so small. It's only small because it's far away. Up close, it's bigger than a mountain. Will it really hit us? Maybe. Probably not. But maybe. That's why we're watching it. That's why we're building tools to protect Earth." Sophia thought about this. "So you used the treasure money to save the world?" "I'm trying to. Whether I succeed won't be clear for a long time. But trying matters. The scientist lady would be happy, right?" Maya thought about Dr. Catherine Reeves, alone in this observatory, identifying a threat, and then spending her final years arranging a fortune to combat it. A woman who'd sacrificed everything for futures she'd never see. "Yeah, baby, I think she'd be very happy." They walked back to their quarters in the renovated auxiliary building. The space was modest but comfortable. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room, with bookshelves filled with astronomy texts Dr. Reeves had left behind. Home. After years of struggle, years of instability, years of wondering if they'd make rent, Maya and Sophia finally had a home they could count on. Maya's phone buzzed with a text. Jennifer Wallace checking in. Marcus Chen filed a lawsuit challenging your ownership of the property. It's frivolous and will be dismissed, but expect some noise over the next few months." Maya sighed. She'd known this was coming. Marcus had been too quiet during the restoration, too accepting of his loss. Of course, he'd fight back legally. She texted back, "Let me know what you need from me. We'll handle it." Whatever Marcus threw at them, Maya could afford excellent lawyers now, could afford to fight, could afford to win. The lawsuit turned out to be exactly as frivolous as Jennifer predicted. Marcus claimed the auction had been improper, that the property should have been appraised at higher value, that Maya had somehow manipulated the process. All lies, easily disproven. The case was dismissed within 3 months. Marcus appealed. It was dismissed again. He threatened to appeal to the state Supreme Court, then quietly gave up when his lawyers told him he was wasting money on a losing battle. Maya read about his bankruptcy in the newspaper 6 months later. Apparently, his development company had overextended on projects that depended on eventually acquiring the observatory land. When Maya refused to sell, when his lawsuit failed, the whole operation collapsed. She felt no satisfaction in his failure, just relief that the threat was finally over. The Foundation's first major grant went to a research team at MIT developing improved detection systems for near-Earth asteroids. $15 million over 5 years. Dr. Martinez served as an advisor, making sure the money was spent effectively. The second grant funded advocacy work, pushing Congress to increase NASA's planetary defense budget, $8 million, to a coalition of organizations that had been fighting this battle for decades. The third grant established scholarships for students studying astronomy and planetary science. $5 million, to ensure the next generation had resources Dr. Reeves' generation hadn't. Money kept flowing out of the Foundation, directed toward a threat most people still didn't understand or care about. But Maya kept pushing, kept funding, kept fighting. By the Foundation's 3rd year, they'd distributed $127 million to projects across 6 countries. Detection systems improved, deflection technologies advanced, political awareness increased, and asteroid 2087 KR-14 kept drifting through space, its trajectory slightly altered by gravitational interactions, its threat probability fluctuating between 1" 50 and 1" 100. Not certain, but possible, and possibility was enough to justify preparation. Sophia grew. At 9 years old, she could operate the telescope under supervision. At 12, she was tracking asteroids independently. At 15, she presented research at an international conference, the youngest participant ever. Maya watched her daughter become exactly what Dr. Reeves had hoped for. Someone who understood the stakes. Someone who'd fight to protect futures that hadn't happened yet. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning in May, 14 years after Maya bought the observatory. Jennifer Wallace's voice carried excitement. Maya rarely heard from the usually reserved attorney. NASA just announced a major breakthrough in asteroid deflection technology. They're crediting your Foundation's funding as instrumental. Without that initial $15 million grant, the research team would have had to shut down. Maya sat at her desk in the observatory's administrative office, looking at Sophia through the window. Her daughter was giving a tour to visiting students, explaining how the telescope worked with the confidence of someone who'd grown up in this place. That's good news. It's more than good. They're naming the system after Dr. Reeves, the Reeves Deflection Array. and they specifically mentioned you in the announcement. Said your decision to honor the consortium's intent rather than keep the fortune made this possible. I just opened a door. Dr. Reeves built everything. You did more than open a door, Maya. You chose the hard path when the easy one was right there. That matters. After hanging up, Maya walked outside to where memorial plaques had been installed. Near the observatory entrance, 7 names, the consortium members who'd assembled the fortune. Dr. Catherine Reeves, Director Dr. Harold Martinez, MIT Dr. Susan Chen, Stanford, Mr. Robert Williams, philanthropist Miss Patricia Hayes, engineer Dr. James Thompson, astronomer Miss Margaret Foster, activist all dead now. But their work continued. Their fortune was changing the world exactly as they'd hoped. Maya stood among those names and felt something settle in her chest. Peace, maybe. Gratitude, certainly. The knowledge that she'd honored a gift she'd never asked for, but absolutely needed. Thank you, she whispered to ghosts. Thank you for trusting that someone would understand. The stars answered with silence, but Maya didn't need a response. Some gifts were given without expectation of thanks. Some sacrifices were made for people you'd never meet. Dr. Catherine Reeves had looked at a threat 60 years in the future and decided to act. 7 people had assembled a fortune to protect lives that didn't exist yet. And a desperate single mother had bought a condemned building for $850 and chosen to honor their trust instead of keeping everything for herself. That choice had changed the world. Not immediately, not dramatically, but steadily over 14 years of grants and research and advocacy. Asteroid 2087 KR-14 still drifted through space, its threat probability now calculated at 1 inch 175. Better odds than when Dr. Reeves first identified it. And if it did threaten Earth, if calculations changed and impact became likely, humanity would have tools to respond. Tools funded by a fortune hidden in a condemned observatory. Tools made possible by a woman who chose humanity over comfort. Sophia appeared beside her mother, following Maya's gaze to the memorial plaques. You okay, Mom? Yeah, baby. Just thinking about how we got here. From buying a broken building, from being desperate enough to gamble on a broken building, from being curious enough to explore it, from being brave enough to honor someone else's dream. Sophia squeezed her mother's hand. You made a good choice. We made a good choice. We're a team, remember? They stood together in the New Mexico desert, beneath a sky full of stars, surrounded by a restoration built on found fortune and deliberate choice. The observatory hummed with life now. Students, researchers, visitors, coming to learn about astronomy and planetary defense. All of it possible because Maya Torres had refused to sell, had refused to take the easy money, had refused to let Dr. Catherine Reeves' gift be wasted. The sun set, painting everything orange and purple. The dome opened, telescope pointing skyward. Another night of observation beginning. Another step toward protecting a future that was still 50 years away. Maya went inside to help with the evening programs. Sophia followed, chattering about the students she'd toured today, about their questions and excitement. Normal work, normal life, built on an extraordinary foundation that had been hidden for 7 years, waiting for someone desperate and curious and brave enough to find it. That someone had been a single mother with $850 and nothing to lose. and she'd changed the world. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.